Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well. So in this video we are going to be reviewing Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which is a standalone Star Wars film that takes place just before the events of A New Hope. Now it's really refreshing with a Rogue One because it's not all about Jedis and Siths and Skywalkers and all of that sort of stuff. Obviously all of that sort of stuff is happening and it's happening in the background, and this film definitely feels the impact all of that stuff, but it's really nice to kind of have a film based on new characters and to see all of the impact of everything else that's been happening over the course of the Star Wars movies. And also because it is a standalone film and it kind of slots in where it does, which is basically before A New Hope, and you kind of know that you're not really going to see these characters again, they can be really destructive with everything that they've created in this movie, in the same way that they were really destructive with Revenge of the Sith, whereby they just blew up everything that they had been building up over those first 3 episodes in the prequel trilogy. In this movie they can kind of do the same within one movie. They can set everything up and then explode it. So from that point of view it's really interesting. And I really like how they, reference everything that's happening in the other episodes. It kind of slots in perfectly and answers all of those questions about the Star Wars mythology that you've been wondering about for loads and loads of years. So it's really cool from that point of view, and I'm going to be breaking down all of the different attributes with Rogue One in this movie review. So the plot of this movie answers the age-old question of how Princess Leia got her hands on the Death Star plans and why the Death Star itself, which is this massive planet-killing machine, has such a basic weakness that in The New Hope they can just easily destroy it. So it kind of answers those questions. And the other aspect that I really like about the plot of this movie is that it focuses on what life is like under the regime of the Empire for normal people. What is it like for normal people living under this tyranny, and what is it like for this group of rebels, like I said before, a new group of characters trying to fight for their freedom. So the story of these not so squeaky clean rebels rebelling and fighting for their freedom is pretty drawn out in the first half of this movie. It drags on a little bit and you're only really rooting for Jyn Erso's character because she's so much more developed than the rest of the crew. The rest of the rebels are nice and they are brilliant comedic value and kind of do flesh out the team and do contribute a lot, but in terms of characters that you're really rooting for, Jyn Erso's character is definitely the central character that you're really rooting for. But the second half of the Rogue One film more than makes up for the potential boring first half, because it is just one dramatic scene after the other and definitely just keeps you on your toes because it's just such an incredible, intense second half that looks visually absolutely magnificent. The scenes on the beach are just absolutely brilliant. I wish there were more of those scenes because they were just absolutely brilliant and compelling viewing. But what you do get is really cool. So I feel like the second half of Rogue One is absolutely brilliant. It's also really nice to kind of see that the Empire don't have it all together. The Death Star is still a work in progress, and they really don't have very inspirational leadership. Darth Vader is leading with the Iron Fist and is making sure everyone is in terror of him and the Emperor, and Tarkin is more than happy to take credit for all of Orson's hard work. So he's very cold and is not a great inspirational leader. So I just feel like it's really interesting to kind of flesh out this world, kind of do a lot more world building from what you've seen in the episodic Skywalker saga. So I feel like from that point of view, the storyline of Rogue One is really cool. So one of the main criticisms about Rogue One is that it doesn't develop its characters enough for you to care about them when you know eventually they're all going to pass away. So the impact isn't that much because they haven't developed or fleshed out these characters enough. A lot of them are just there kind of for comedic purposes, which is really cool because they do add to that really well to the film. But they would have been better and nicer and great for the film as well if they just developed these great characters further. But either way, let's go through them one by one. So first up we have Felicity Jones, who plays Jyn Erso, and she does a brilliant job in really bringing this character to life. She really captures the essence of this character super well. A rebel who's kind of been on her own from a very young age, very self-sufficient, very independent, very much depending only on herself, has a very strong moral compass, and I feel like she worked really well with the other rebel characters, kind of slots in really well with them, kind of interacts really well with them as well. And I love her 2 story arcs, one from going from imprisonment to freedom, and then the family story arc as well with her relationship with her dad, which I thought was really, really nice. So I feel like the Felicity Jones Jyn Erso character is brilliant in this movie, and she does a really good job in leading the film as well. Next up we have Diego Luna as Cassian, the rebel captain, and he's a really great character as well, and by contrast he has a bit more of a twisted moral code, and I loved the scene where it was Felicity Jones's Jyn Erso and Diego Luna's Cassian character kind of having a bit of a confrontation in terms of their perspectives, where Jyn has that brilliant line where she's like, alright then, well if you're just going to kill everyone in your path and you're just going to be following orders, then you may as well be a stormtrooper. And then his response is, well, you know, I've been in the rebel leadership position and I've kind of felt the brunt of the Empire, and now, you know, that's why I am the way that I am. So I just love the different perspectives and the different questioning of, even if you are on the right side, you can still do morally questionable things. So I really love the fact that these two characters are working really well as a team, but just come at things from different perspectives. So I just wish that they kind of fleshed that out a little bit more with Diego Luna's character of Cassian, because that was a brilliant storyline. Next up we have Ben Mendelsohn's character of Orson, who is the weapons director as part of the Imperial Empire fleet, and I feel like he was a really, really good villain in this film. I feel like he was pretty layered. You kind of saw him right from the beginning. He's kind of very headstrong, quite ruthless as well, and he kind of gets a bit screwed over by Tarkin and by Darth Vader. So I feel like I love the fact that there was different levels and different layers within the evil side, and I feel like he really led the film from an antagonist point of view really, really well. We then have one of the best characters that Star Wars has created, the character that stole the show in this movie, which is K2SO, the reprogrammed Imperial Druid that joins the Rebel team and has some of the best one-liners, some of the most brilliantly improvised scenes in this movie, and his death was just so sad because he was just such a brilliant character, really slotted in well in the Rebel team, had brilliant timing with his one-liners, and like I said, was just a great member of the team as well. So he was a brilliant addition and really brought a new side of the whole Druids and Rebels and team members and teamwork and all that sort of stuff. So I feel like K2SO was absolutely brilliant. We then have Donnie Yen's character, who was a blind Force believer, and equally, similarly actually, he had a lot of really nice comedy timings, brilliant one-liners as well, and really shows that, you know, there are other people within the whole galaxy that are really true believers of the Force and can kind of use it somewhat to help them, which is really, really cool. We then have Riz Ahmed's character, who played Bodhi, who was an Imperial pilot and then joined the Rebel team. So conceptually was a little bit like the Finn character, who was a stormtrooper and then joined the Rebel team. So a little bit similar from this point of view in this film. I feel like his character was really nice, but, you know, in terms of all of the other characters, the big criticism is that he wasn't developed that much. But, you know, in terms of contribution and teamwork and slotting in with the Rebels, he did a really good job from that point of view. We then have Forrest Whitaker's character of Saw Gerrera, who was further along the line than Diego Luna's Cassian's character in terms of being a bit of an extremist within the Rebel side and kind of doing his own thing and doing really questionable things. Kind of paid the price of it. But then at the same time, he was the character that kind of brought Jyn up for most of her life. But then he was never really anywhere to be seen, and you weren't really sure what kind of happened between these two characters. I believe there were scenes which kind of explained this backstory a little bit further, but ultimately they decided not to include them in the film, which is a real shame, as the Saw Gerrera character was a bit randomly included in here, in terms of he was there in little moments, but you didn't really feel anything when his character ultimately passed away, because they didn't really explain enough about his backstory for you to kind of really empathize with this character. I also loved all of the character appearances that really helped link Rogue One to A New Hope, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. So the first one was, of course, Tarkin, who I know got a lot of criticism in terms of whether or not he should have appeared in the movie or not, but I feel like he was so imperative to the whole Death Star storyline that it was necessary to include him. Fair enough, they could have included less of him, but I feel like it was a really nice contribution to see him in this movie. Next up we have Vader, who was absolutely incredible in this movie. That final scene with Darth Vader just being a complete badass was just absolutely awesome. I wish we saw more of Darth Vader, as he was such a brilliant contribution throughout the entire Star Wars legacy. So it would have been nice to kind of see a bit more of him, but you know what we did see was really, really cool. I absolutely loved the Princess Leia cameo appearance right at the end of the movie. I feel like the Princess Leia character is such a massive character in both the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, so it was a really nice contribution to kind of see her here and to really help link Rogue One with A New Hope. So I feel like her appearance was absolutely incredible right at the end, very akin to Luke Skywalker appearing right at the end of Force Awakens, which was equally awesome. As well, we also have that blink and you missed it, very brief cameo appearance of C-3PO and R2-D2, which I thought was really, really nice as well. So, you know, overall, from a character's point of view, really nice characters in this movie. They could have just further expanded some of them to really make impact in this movie. But, you know, for the most part, a really decent roster of characters, both old characters and new characters. Really nice to also see those characters that were referring to Obi-Wan Kenobi and really linking the prequel trilogy to Rogue One as well, which is really, really nice. I was surprised that there wasn't a betrayal happening within this roster of characters, but I suppose at the time they were keeping a betrayal for The Last Jedi by Benicio del Toro's character of DJ, so I suppose they were kind of keeping a betrayal storyline for that movie. But you know, for the most part, the characters in this movie are pretty awesome. So I wanted to add in a section where we talk about the reshooted scenes for this movie. You know, it's been highly documented that 40% apparently of Rogue One was reshot. You know, Riz Ahmed has also confirmed that there were a lot of reshoots that were happening for Rogue One, but 5 scenes in particular that were shown in the trailers that just didn't make it to the final theatrical release, which is such a shame because they just looked like such incredible scenes. So let's go through them one by one. So the first one was Jyn Erso having a TIE fighter plane coming up in front of her and not knowing whether or not she can survive it, whether or not there's a rebel person in that fighter jet that's going to be able to save her, or if it's somebody that's going to attack her and she has to somehow get away from that situation, which would have been such an awesome scene. So I'm so gutted that we didn't see that scene playing itself out in the movie. The next scene was Jyn Erso's character and Cassian running across the beach with the death plans in their hand and trying to get it out of the planet and back into the hands of the rebels so that they can kind of save the day and work out how to destroy the Death Star. That scene would have just been so awesome because it looked a bit like a chase scene happening across the beach with Jyn Erso's character and Cassian kind of running across. I'm guessing they got rid of this scene because they wanted the movie to play out differently in terms of these two characters staying on this planet and having that explosion death that we saw in the theatrical release. So maybe, you know, had they kept this in, they would have flown out, they would have gone back to the rebels and maybe Darth Vader would have had a fight with them or something like that. So they obviously changed it all up. But it would have just been really nice to kind of see that scene because I love chase sequences, especially in Star Wars, and this looked like it would have been an absolutely brilliant one. I'm guessing also with the reshoots, if they did want to keep that scene in, maybe they would have had to fly everyone back to the Maldives to refilm everything, and obviously they didn't have the budget to do that. So they obviously went for a slightly smaller scale alternative, but that scene would have been so interesting to kind of see. I hope one day we get to see what that scene would have looked like because it absolutely looked awesome from what we saw in the trailer. The next one is one that I've already mentioned before, which was a bit more in-depth detail about the Saw Gerrera character and the link with Jyn Erso's character. What kind of happened between these two over the last years? Did Saw Gerrera's character kind of push Jyn away because he didn't want her to kind of go down the terrorist path that he was on? So it would have been really interesting to kind of see what was happening between these two characters. Very similar to Batman vs Superman. The fact that they got rid of scenes in the Ultimate Edition where they included them, it really helped pad out certain storylines. So I feel like if they had included this in here, it would have meant that those storylines would have made more sense. There's a real shame that they kind of got rid of that one as well. The next one was the other scene that we saw with Darth Vader kind of overseeing some of the Death Star development and maybe being unimpressed in how slow the progression has been coming along. So it would have been really nice to kind of see this scene included in. Like I said before, we didn't see as much of Darth Vader that we could have and should have seen in this movie. I know obviously it's not based on his character, they didn't want him to have too much of a presence, but you know, more Darth Vader would have made this movie even better. And then the final scene that I absolutely loved in the trailer was the Orson character just walking down the beach, seeing the remnants of this massive battle, you know, stormtroopers on the floor, rebels on the floor, and just kind of walking down the beach. Maybe he knows that the Death Star has been shot and is going to explode this whole area, so he's just having one final walk, which I thought was a really powerful, epic, kind of chilling scene. That is just such a shame that also we didn't get to see this because it just looked like it would have really helped make this movie even more iconic than it was. So it's such a shame that we didn't get to see that one either. So, you know, it's a shame that they kind of reshot and removed and edited and kind of left some of these epic scenes out of the theatrical release, because I really feel like they would have added so much more to the final film. But, you know, that being said, Rogue One is still an awesome movie. It's just a shame that we didn't get to see these awesome scenes in the final cut. From a visuals point of view, Rogue One is an absolutely awesome movie. I feel like the second half of this movie just is absolutely breathtaking. That beach battle was just absolutely awesome. And I love the shots that they had in this movie, whereby they showed it from like the rebel human point of view, just to see how massive these AT-AT walkers are. So I just feel like those scenes, that perspective shot, and just the fear that these humans have that are fighting these massive AT-AT walkers was just absolutely brilliantly, beautifully shot. And I just love that perspective angle that they had. And just the beach battle in general, like I said, just looked absolutely awesome. I'm an absolutely massive fan of palm trees, and I just feel like the palm trees look absolutely awesome. So the second half of this movie looked absolutely incredible. The first half, you know, it did look really, really nice in terms of you were feeling like you're immersed in this whole Star Wars world. And I feel like that is a strength for the first half from a visuals point of view, in terms of you really do feel what it's like to be under the Empire's regime, as it's a bit of an unpleasant representation for what it's like for normal people to be under the Empire's regime. And I feel like they really embodied and showed and visually represented that unhappy and unfriendly kind of way of living. So I feel like that was really strongly represented. That Darth Vader scene in the final act of this movie looked absolutely incredible. Definitely Darth Vader at his best, showing what an absolutely unstoppable, formidable force he is. They didn't really show lightsabers at all in Rogue One, and then when they showed it with Darth Vader, with that final scene where he's splicing and dicing all of those rebel pilots left, right and centre, was absolutely incredible. And I definitely feel like they captured the Darth Vader character absolutely brilliantly over there. I wish we had seen more of Darth Vader, but I just feel like this kind of look for the character and just showing how unstoppable he is as a lead-in for A New Hope, I thought was absolutely brilliant. And you can see why he's such a feared villain and why he's always known as being an insanely awesome leader as well. So I feel like that Darth Vader scene was absolutely brilliant. The CGI work, I feel like on Leia, looked absolutely incredible, and I just feel like it really did capture that character and really solidified that movie really, really well from the Leia point of view. Tarkin, I feel like you could tell his character was CGI heavy. I guess it's unfair to compare the two because Leia was only in there for a fraction of a second, whereas Tarkin was in quite a few scenes. I feel like if they had reduced it, it wouldn't have been as bad, but I just feel like the Tarkin CGI was a little bit off-putting because you could tell a little bit, but you know, I feel like it was necessary for the storyline. So, you know, from a visuals point of view, overall, I feel like Rogue One is a very strong movie. In terms of comparisons, I feel like Rogue One is a very strong Star Wars entry. In terms of the other standalone films, I feel like it's a lot better than Solo and the animated Clone Wars movie. So I feel like Rogue One is definitely the best standalone Star Wars film so far. In terms of comparing it to the episodic Skywalker saga, I feel like it is better than some, maybe not as good as others, so I feel like it's slap bang in the middle over there. And in terms of the main lead character, whilst I really do like the Jyn character, I do personally prefer Rey Skywalker out of the two. I feel like Rey is a very complicated, very strong, very in-depth character. I guess it's hard to compare because Rey has had 3 movies to really get to know her and for her to go on a brilliant character arc. But that being said, you know, Jyn is a really, really cool character as well, and I did like her arc in this one standalone film. So, you know, she is really cool from that point of view. So whilst Rogue One did have a bit of a slow start, I feel like the second half was really, really cool. And so overall, it is a really great Star Wars movie entry. Overall, I did really enjoy Rogue One. I thought it was a solid Star Wars entry movie. I absolutely loved the linking in with A New Hope and answering all of those Death Star questions, which is really, really cool. I feel like the start of the movie was a bit slow, a little bit incoherent, and I feel like it was a little bit all over the place. But that being said, you know, the second half was absolutely awesome. It's a shame that more of the characters weren't better developed. But that being said, I feel like Jyn Erso's character led the film really, really well. And there were really nice, fun, funny, and comedic moments in this film. So overall, it is a really solid and enjoyable film. And for all of those reasons, I'm going to give it a solid 6.5 out of 10. I'd love to hear what you think, so please let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.